The chart looks calm, but only because you've silenced it. You didn't remove noise. You removed reality. The TMA line curves like a sedative, smoothing volatility, masking pressure, dulling the edge that should have made you hesitate. Now every trade looks like a wave, a rhythm, a flow, but it's not flow. It's filtered avoidance. You're not reading the market. You're reading the illusion you created to justify trades that don't belong. You call it a system, but there's no logic under it, just the need to act before the silence makes you feel exposed. You scalp not to win, but to avoid the stillness that comes with not knowing what to do. The TMA doesn't give you clarity. It gives you cover. You click because waiting feels worse than losing. You enter because clean curves look safer than sharp truth. But smoothing the chart doesn't smooth your judgment. The candles didn't change. You just blurred them so you could pretend to see something and call it a signal. You didn't adapt to the market. You hid from it. You didn't want accuracy. You wanted comfort. That's why you chose TMA. Not because it reveals anything, but because it conceals everything. The chop? Filtered. The indecision? Blurred. The raw price that forces you to think? Gone. Now you get perfect curves and perfect entry zones, with none of the pressure to verify them. You didn't simplify your strategy. You sterilized it. You removed the messiness, because the real market asks questions you can't answer. You weren't looking for edge. You were looking for escape. The moment price moved sideways, you panicked. Not because you didn't know what to do, but because doing nothing felt like failure. You scalp, not out of confidence, but because stillness threatens your sense of identity. So you fire off another trade, right into the middle of nowhere, because the line curved upward. And that felt like permission. You call it timing. It's not. It's anesthesia. You're numbing the pressure by softening the visual. You don't want signals. You want excuses. The chart feels manageable now, but only because it's no longer real. Every smooth line is a permission slip to ignore structure, skip confirmation, and avoid accountability. You've replaced market awareness with visual sedation. You're not identifying patterns. You're reacting to curves that respond to your fear, not the chart. Because when price gets quiet, you get louder. You fill the space with action, with setups that don't exist, but feel good enough to justify another click. You told yourself TMA helps you focus, but you don't want focus. You want something that hides your indecision while letting you stay in motion. Because motion, even if it's blind, feels safer than silence. You scalp the 1 minute with curved lines and soft entries, not to survive, but to avoid having to admit You don't know what you're doing when the chart gives you nothing. And instead of waiting, you trade the illusion. You're not in sync with the market. You're in sync with your discomfort. And the smoother your tools, the more disconnected you become from what's actually happening. The price isn't lying. Your chart is. Because you programmed it to. Because the truth, flat price, no setup, no entry, was too painful to accept. So you clicked to kill the discomfort, and the TMA helped you feel justified. But justified doesn't mean right. It just means you're good at hiding collapse behind clean lines. You don't realize the damage at first. Because the trades look clean, the chart looks structured, the losses seem small, but this isn't about losing money. It's about losing grip, not on price, on reality. You stop questioning your entries because the line curves in your favor, so it must be valid. You stop journaling setups because every trade feels the same. Smooth, predictable, comfortable. But comfort doesn't sharpen you. It softens you. And you start to decay in the middle of what looks like precision. You forget how to read raw price. You forget how to wait. You forget how to say no to a chart that isn't saying yes. You become dependent on the visual calm, the fake symmetry, the emotional anesthesia. You used to verify setups. Now you verify your line. And as long as it slopes gently, you assume you're right. But the market doesn't care about your curve. It moves how it moves. It punishes entries with no structure, no logic, no plan, no pause. So you start losing, not in spikes, but in drips. Little leaks, little flinches, little trades that felt harmless until they stacked into confusion. You chase the next clean wave, but you're no longer looking at the market. You're looking at the reflection of what you hope the market becomes. And the more losses that pile up, the more desperate you get to make the next line work. So you click sooner, hold longer, exit late, or worse, re-enter on nothing but curve continuation. Your risk management erodes because nothing feels risky when the lines look gentle. But that's the illusion. Gentle visuals, brutal outcomes. Because you never saw the trap. You only saw the curve. Your account doesn't die in a crash. It fades. Quietly, like your judgment. You don't even panic. You just get numb. Until one day you look back and realize you haven't made a single decision that was actually yours. The chart made them for you. The line made them for you. Your fear of stillness made them for you. And now, you don't know how to trade without a crutch. You can't read a clean chart without craving sedation. You can't handle a flat market without forcing an entry. You didn't lose to the market. You lost to comfort, one soft curve at a time. turn the indicator off. Not later. Not after one more trade. Now. You don't need another confirmation. You need confrontation. Because as long as that curve stays on your screen, you'll keep lying to yourself. You think you're using it as a tool. You're not. You're using it as a shield against the silence you're too afraid to sit in. The silence where real setups live. The silence where you actually have to think. Right now, you've got an overlay doing your work for you, pretending to see things. You never look for yourself. That's not precision. That's sedation. You don't trust your chart. You trust the line. Because the line never argues, never pushes back, never exposes your doubt. It just curves. Soft. Smooth. Safe. But safe entries aren't always strong entries. And your comfort is costing you conviction. So here's your next step win. Strip the chart. No indicators. No overlays. No filtered averages. Just raw price. Naked candles. Unforgiving structure. And stare at it until the twitch shows up. The urge to click without clarity. The need to act without edge. Let it come. And don't move. Because that moment, right there, when the chart looks empty and your mind gets loud, that's where your edge starts. Not in the curve. Not in the template. In the restraint. You won't find structure until you stop using tools that hide your lack of it. You won't learn timing until you stop masking fear with smooth visuals. You won't learn clarity until you stop buying silence from indicators that do nothing but tell you what you already want to hear. You don't need curves. You need honesty. Price is messy. So are you. Good. Because growth doesn't come from control. It comes from facing noise without trying to flatten it. You think you can't trade without TMA. But the truth is, you've never traded with it. You've only avoided yourself. So shut it off. All of it. Feel the chart as it is. Sharp. Inconsistent. Unforgiving. Just like the market. Just like you. And if you can't stand looking at raw price, then you're not a trader. You're an operator. Running someone else's machine. Power it down. Rebuild. Trade what's real. Not what you've softened into safety. You didn't smooth the chart. You smothered your process. Every curve you trusted was a refusal to wait, to sit in uncertainty, to admit you had nothing. You weren't scalping price. You were scalping discomfort, trying to feel calm while placing trades you didn't believe in. You called it confirmation, but it was decoration. You dressed your fear in indicators and called it structure. But structure isn't what you see. It's what you endure. And you never endured silence. You filled it with TMA, with motion, with sabotage. Now you think you need that line. You don't. You never did. You just needed something to blur the truth. But now the truth is here. The market didn't betray you. The curve did. And every time you obeyed it, you erased the part of you that could have actually learned. You didn't need a smoother chart. You needed sharper clarity. This video confronts behavior. It does not define identity.